Chapter 1356, coincidentally obtained another supernatural ability. Tang Xiu's eyes flashed with excitement as he put away the crown into his interspatial ring. He didn't care to see what grade and the kind of treasure the crown was and just submerged deep into the water again. Seeing the dead body of the golden-eyed aquaproof beast, he quickly put the remains into his ring and then quickly went to the Immortal Pearl Protection Array at the bottom of the lake. In just half an instant's time, he broke the array, took the 108 purple coral agates, and stuffed them away. As he came to the 10,000 years old cold jade platform, he grabbed a round bead radiating a 7-colored light. A 7-colored dragon pearl? Tang Xiu's eyes instantly shone. The 7-colored dragon pearl formed by the lifelong quintessence of a sacred dragon which then fused and formed a core. An absolutely priceless treasure in any Supreme's eyes. If any early-stage Supreme powerhouse took and absorbed this 7-colored dragon pearl, it would greatly shorten the time needed for that person to advance to the late-stage Supreme. Further, that person would very likely have a chance to cross the divinity tribulation and ascended to godhood. Obtaining a 7-colored dragon pearl was simply tailor-made for him. If he absorbed it, his cultivation speed would be greatly improved by at least several times. Gotta take and ingest this thing. After contemplating back and forth, Tang Xiu finally made up his mind to ingest the 7-colored dragon pearl. An inexplicable taste and sensation then suddenly enveloped his heart. A supernatural ability. Rainbow Phantasmagoria Realm? Tang Xiu's expression turned uncanny. He never dreamed that the dragon pearl would stimulate such a talent after ingesting it. What made him feel even more incredulous was that this Rainbow Phantasmagoria Realm was a supernatural ability that sharply increased his mastery in the illusion art. He could even use this divine ability to form a phantasm realm that could make the enemy hallucinate and expose their secrets to him. Unbelievable. This is so damn incredible. Tang Xiu could tell how terrifying this Rainbow Phantasmagoria realm was. It was a supernatural ability that was far more abnormal than the Devour and Fusion abilities. If he were to fight against powerful enemies and caught them under the influence of this Rainbow Phantasmagoria realm, he could distract them instantly. Most importantly, he could also learn their weaknesses by confusing their minds. Suddenly, his expression shifted and he flashed to a small mud ditch in the blink of an eye. He quickly cast a concealment array disc and restrained his aura. A few moments later, 2 figures appeared in the spot Tang Xiu just stood. Using their spiritual sense, they observed the surroundings but then frowned. There was obviously a fight here, but there are no traces of anyone. They must have erased their traces. If my guess is correct, they must have noticed our arrival and stopped fighting and then left. I guess so. Besides, it was a fight between perfected golden immortals. Pity that we came too early. Had we come after both sides got injured after the fight, we would have definitely been able to kill all of them and then obtained the benefit. Hey, let's set off again. The 2 men just exchanged some lines and then left. Time went by. After 2 days passed, Tang Xiu silently removed the concealment array and then activated an invisibility charm before he left the bottom of the lake. As he appeared at the lakeside, he didn't find anyone hiding in the surroundings and then hurried towards the nearest mansion. The number of people that entered the secret palace was big, but the secret palace was too large and Tang Xiu only ran into many golden immortals and perfected golden immortals earlier. But a few days later, after having traveled for millions of kilometers, he only encountered 2 golden immortals. Sky Pillar Manor. It was a majestic manor surrounded and fully enveloped in an array in the secret palace with only a long bridge passage to enter it. For several days, however, tens of golden immortals and perfected golden immortals who discovered this manor had not yet successfully crossed the bridge. Those who tried were either killed by the restriction and trap mechanisms on the bridge or returned with grave injuries. Some hundreds of kilometers from the manor, Sable-fiend Scorpio's figure trembled and dark green blood flowed out of her mouth. Her black robe was tattered and showed some shocking bleeding wounds, with white bones appearing from several wounds on her body. Hand over that obsidian urn and we may spare a wisp of your soul so you can be reborn and become a scorpion again. You can keep resisting, but don't blame us for annihilating your soul. But then, you'll never be able to be reincarnated. A delicate and pretty man in golden robes grinned strangely. Beside him were two tower-like stout men nearly identical in appearance. They were both about 4 meters in height with oil luster-like dark skin, and they had an additional eye on their forehead, a very rare and peculiar trait of members from the violent Three Eyes race in the immortal world. Sable Fiend Scorpio was a bit desperate. Her cultivation was at the late stage, perfected golden immortal now. It was safe to say that only a few people could kill her in this secret palace. But these 3 men were also late-stage, perfected golden immortals, while Whitespark True Monarch especially had a 9th grade artifact, the Skyscraper Augur. Think clearly, Whitespark True Monarch. You 3 may be able to kill me, but I'll take at least one of you to the grave with me, while the 2 others won't be unscathed either. There are at least tens of powerhouses in the surroundings waiting for a cheap harvest after both of us get injured, said Sable Fiend Scorpio coldly.
Ha!
Do you think this lord will be scared? Whitespark True Monarch sneered. You want to pull some other sacrificial victims to us and are still trying to make us pay a grievous price? You're already on the tip of a horn and we can slay you without going all out. Spare the shitty nonsense and just hand over the obsidian urn, else we'll really annihilate your soul. Sable Fiend Scorpio took a deep breath and looked around, shouting aloud, who dares to stand up now? Who else wants this obsidian urn treasure? Whitespark True Monarch smilingly scoffed at her effort, whereas the 2 three-eyed experts of violent Three Eyes clan looked contemptuous. At the moment, who dared to stand up and face 3 late-stage, perfected golden immortals like them? As expected, nobody from the tens of perfected golden immortals hiding in the surroundings came forward. It wasn't that they didn't desire the obsidian urn, but they were rather unsure whether they could defeat Whitespark True Monarch's group of 3 if they helped Sable Fiend Scorpio. Further, the enemy they had to face was not limited to Whitespark group of 3 alone since there were many auras hiding in the surroundings, potential enemies that would very likely strike when any of them were to fight against Whitespark group, and then both sides were mutually injured. Should it happen, these people would definitely strike to kill them to snatch their treasures. Feeling vexed and unwilling inwardly, Sable Fiend Scorpio hoped that her master, Tang Xiu, could arrive soon. However, she was perfectly aware that even if Tang Xiu was able to slay a perfected golden immortal with a surprise attack, it was just impossible for him to be an opponent to the 3 perfected golden immortals. Even with his help, the final outcome would only add 1 more death. Then again, even if he does come here, the chance of him daring to help me in this predicament is very slim, no? After all, this situation spells a dead end to anyone. Sable Fiend Scorpio took another deep breath. She then took out a blood-red long saber from her body with madness-filled eyes. This high-grade precantator artifact was comparable to an 8th grade immortal artifact. She didn't take it out before since she didn't want anyone to know that she had such a high-grade precantator artifact, so as to guard against anyone from targeting her and hunting her due to coveting the treasure. But she couldn't care so much about anything else now. Bring it on, then. Let's see which one of you who'll go to the grave with me. Sable Fiend Scorpio shouted. Precantator artifact? The moment Sable Fiend Scorpio took out a precantator saber, Whitespark True Monarch and his 2 subordinates were not the only ones who could sense the diabolic force radiating from the weapon, but also the tens of powerhouses in the surroundings. Some well-informed people could even recognize that precantator saber, a magical weapon originated from the once famous Diablo precantator race in the immortal world. Interesting. A grim figure flickered from a distance and a surging aura radiated from him as he said in a deep voice, Sable Fiend Scorpio, you had vanished for a few centuries, so I never thought that you'd appear here. Further, that weapon in your hands was once used by a warlord of the Diablo precantator race in the past. Do you also want to have a share of killing me, venerable netherworld? Replied Sable Fiend Scorpio aggressively. You're very strong. I'm well aware that I'm not your match. Venerable Netherworld shook his head and smilingly said, those three are certainly very strong. I cannot fight against them either. I'm just curious. You were just a mid-stage, perfected golden immortal a couple hundreds of years ago, yet you quickly advanced to the late-stage, perfected golden immortal stage. How did you do that? If you answer me, it's not impossible for me to fight alongside you. Sable Fiend Scorpio's expression shifted and she deeply stared at Venerable Netherworld. She knew that what the man just said was correct. Not to mention a few centuries ago, she was still a mid-stage, perfected golden immortal several days ago. But after entering the secret palace, her luck could be said to be extremely heaven-defying. She got teleported to a swamp where a celestial spirit fruit tree grew. Further, that celestial spirit fruit tree had 2 ripe fruits. She then took one, which made her cultivation sharply increase and then allowed her to successfully advance to the late stage, perfected golden immortal, within a few days. Certainly, that's because I ran into some fortuitous encounter. Venerable Netherworld narrowed his eyes and forced a smile after hearing Sable Fiend Scorpio's answer. He sighed. Hey, I also wanted to wait for both of you to injure each other and then act to snatch the obsidian urn. I just never thought you would have a Diablo Precantator clan's weapon, so I didn't have a choice but to act ahead of time. Sable Fiend Scorpio, you also realize the situation you're in now, don't you? Your chance of winning is nearly nil if you fight them alone. Only by fighting side by side with me will you have a chance of winning. Sable Fiend Scorpio frowned and asked, why are you helping me? Because I also have an artifact like yours, answered Venerable Netherworld lightly. Although I have no idea what kind of fortuitous encounter you experienced, I'm sure that Precantator artifacts are very rare to find nowadays since the Diablo Precantator clan has vanished from the immortal world. Anyone who has a Precantator artifact has obtained their inheritance. Chapter 1357, Routing Enemies Easily. Sable Fiend Scorpio quickly understood Venerable Netherworld's meaning. The man seemed to have misunderstood that she had obtained the inheritance of Diablo Precantator clan, thus they could be said to be half family. Standing a kilometer away, Whitespark True Monarch immediately looked angry after hearing Venerable Netherworld's words and growled. Are you sure you want to poke your nose in our business, Venerable Netherworld? Then, let me tell you one thing. We'll slay you with her if you don't retreat quickly. You know, tons of people have threatened me, but none of them has been able to realize their bragging, replied Venerable Netherworld coldly. Rumor has it that you are very powerful, Whitespark True Monarch. Let me taste it from you directly today. Let's see whether you're really powerful or I can jump up levels and defeat you. Kill him. Seeing that Venerable Netherworld really wanted to interfere in their business, Whitespark True Monarch realized that wasting more time to reason would only give Sable Fiend Scorpio time to heal herself. His figure bolted lightning fast as he lunged to the 2 people while unleashing his innate natal immortal sword to attack them fiercely. The 2 violent three-eyed clan twins teamed up and formed a double-killing formation with long spears in their hands. A layer of spear shadows turned into a rain of meteors that instantly brushed past Whitespark True Monarch and attacked Sable Fiend Scorpion and Venerable Netherworld. Skynet. A huge golden net instantly warded off in front of Venerable Netherworld and Sable Fiend Scorpio. As both of them retreated, layers of sword shadows covered the space around them. In nearly a flash, the sword shadows split in front of Whitespark True Monarch, and the huge net began to change to various forms. Though it was their first time teaming up, Venerable Netherworld and Sable Fiend Scorpio were able to cooperate well. The 2 experienced powerhouses fought side by side, one in a defensive role and the other on the offensive. And they were actually able to fend off the onslaught of the 3 late-stage, perfected golden immortals. The 2 of us are not their opponents. We have to find a way to escape. Venerable Netherworld transmitted his idea to Sable Fiend Scorpio. I know that, replied Sable Fiend Scorpio. I could take on one of them and have a chance to win had I not been injured. But my injury is rather serious and I can only unleash 80% of my power, making it too hard to defeat them. On top of that, we're inside the secret palace and I'm not familiar with the situation nearby. Nothing I can think of to make any sound escape plan. Venerable Netherworld felt tense. He had sent a message to 9 Nether Swordmeister a few days ago. He learned that the man would need at least half a month before he could reunite with him. Therefore, he could only find a way to resolve the impending crisis by himself. Let's bluff them. After thinking of a solution, Venerable Netherworld finally transmitted his idea. And how do we do that? Asked Sablefiend Scorpio. I'll cast my Skynet later and you and I will unleash our strongest blow at the same time, said Venerable Netherworld. Even if we can't injure them heavily, it would make them immediately take a defensive stance and retreat. Then we'll take the chance to escape at once. There are many dangers in the secret palace. Even if they are powerful, they need to think about whether to pursue us with all they have. I'm betting on the chance that they will immediately give up after chasing us for some millions of kilometers. All right, let's give it a try, replied Sablefiend Scorpio after hearing his explanation. The instant after, she and Venerable Netherworld did their utmost to unleash their strongest killing blows. As the two people's innate natal weapons turned into a flurry ocean of strikes, the expressions of Whitespark True Monarch's group of 3 slightly changed. Buzz. Right at that moment, however, the 3 of them suddenly felt their sights go blurry all of a sudden. Yet their eyes turned wide as though they were looking at the most incredible thing in the world. The people they missed the most. Slash. 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 The moment Whitespark True Monarch escaped from the illusion, he noticed a fearsome strike coming right before his eyes that was too difficult for him to avoid. He could only release his weapon artifact and raise his arm instantly. Arg. However, his hand was cut off directly. The twin brothers of the violent Three-Eyed Clan were not as strong as Whitespark True Monarch in willpower. They seemed to be unaware of anything until the strikes reached them and they were directly slain by 2 immortal weapons. F***CK. Whitespark True Monarch furiously cursed while enduring the severe pain. As he flew backward, he quickly collected the immortal souls of the 2 violent Three-Eyed Clansmen and then turned to flee. What the hell is going on? The sudden change caught Sablefiend Scorpio and Venerable Netherworld unprepared. They looked at each other, shifted to the back of the fleeing Whitespark True Monarch, and then looked at the bodies of the 2 violent Three-Eyed Clansmen. They were shocked and speechless for a while. What, how, and when did their attacks become so powerful? How come they could even directly slay perfected golden immortals so easily? In the surroundings, the tens of perfected golden immortals secretly watching the fight felt as if they were dreaming. It was truly unexpected, something they were unable to accept for a while. Whoosh. Tang Xiu's figure suddenly appeared in front of them. With a nonchalant smile on his handsome face, he took the 2 interspatial rings from the remains of the 2 violent Three-Eyed Clansmen and then stuffed them into his own ring. Then, he cupped his fists and offered a greeting. We meet again, Venerable Netherworld. The man stared strangely at Tang Xiu and nodded in response. I didn't expect to meet you here, Great Tang. Heavenly Emperor. Well, fate works in mysterious ways. It was that made us meet here, responded Tang Xiu with a smile. Also, I'd like to thank Venerable Netherworld for extending your hand to help me. I just drew my sword and he said I've helped him? Venerable Netherworld was slightly shocked. Master. The moment Sablefiend Scorpio saw Tang Xiu, she immediately realized why those 3 people acted abnormally a while ago. What happened to that man's group was absolutely something her master, Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, pulled off. However, though it was just guesswork, she couldn't help but feel scared inwardly. After all, in her eyes, Tang Xiu was someone whose strength was inferior to perfected golden immortals. The first time she saw him kill an early-stage, perfected golden immortal was also thanks to a sneak attack he pulled off. Tang Xiu let out a pale smile and glanced at her veiled face, saying, "It was fortunate that I came in time, else it wouldn't have been so easy to get out of danger." Master. At the moment, Venerable Netherworld looked incredulous and his eyes turned bigger than a bell as he stared at Tang Xiu and Sable Fiend Scorpio. He never dreamed that the female perfected golden immortal would address this weak heavenly emperor Tangai as master. What the hell? What happened here? The tens of perfected golden immortals in the surroundings were similarly in disbelief. They didn't sense any powerful aura from Tang Xiu whatsoever. Further, the mysterious young man addressed by Sable Fiend Scorpio as master obviously had just crossed a tribulation for some time. Even if he did practice some kind of secret magical arts, his strength would only be at the Earth Immortal stage at the strongest. But how could he become Sable Fiend Scorpio's master, a perfected golden immortal? Who the heck is this guy? Even such a great perfected golden immortal like Sable Fiend Scorpio has submitted to him? Everyone knows that a certain supreme who wanted to make her submit some thousands of years ago failed. When did such a guy appear in the immortal world? What kind of capital and abilities does he have to think that he could make Sable Fiend Scorpio call him master? Is he a scion of a certain huge force, by chance? But even if he is, he's just too weak and doesn't deserve to make Sable Fiend Scorpio submit to him, no? What the hell is happening here? There must be some peculiar circumstances behind this abnormal situation. Definitely. I don't believe that the mysterious young man is that simple. Could this mysterious young man be related to the easy defeat of Whitespark True Monarch in the hands of Venerable Netherworld, and Sable Fiend Scorpio just now? Who exactly is this guy? Certainly, Tang Xiu couldn't hear the tens of perfected golden immortals talking about him in private, let alone know what they were thinking. He looked at Venerable Netherworld's dull expression and smilingly said, "Anyway, this is not a good place to reminisce, Venerable Netherworld. Why don't we leave this place first and then have some drinks?" Venerable Netherworld raised his guard against Tang Xiu inwardly. But after hesitating for a while, he nodded and slowly said, "That's exactly what has crossed my mind as well. Please lead the way." "All right." Tang Xiu slightly smiled and then turned to fly away with Sable Fiend Scorpio. Nobody among the tens of perfected golden immortals in the surroundings tried to block them. Although they also wanted to snatch the treasures in Sable Fiend Scorpio's possession, they just witnessed how Whitespark True Monarch's group of 3 were beaten so badly that 1 fled and 2 died. They felt they didn't have the ability to keep both of them here, as well as that mysterious young man. Some million kilometers away. As Tang Xiu led Sable Fiend Scorpio and Venerable Netherworld to descend in a mountain valley, he then released his spiritual sense to observe the surroundings and found that there were no other people within hundreds of kilometers. He quickly arranged a soundproof array and then smilingly said, "Venerable Netherworld, please come." The man shot a deep look at Tang Xiu and then quickly glanced at Sable Fiend Scorpio, who stood respectfully next to Tang Xiu. He then sat cross-legged on a large blue stone. Tang Xiu took out some immortal wine and poured it into 2 cups. He gave a cup to Venerable Netherworld, then raised his hand to toast and smiled. "I once again thank you for helping us out, Venerable Netherworld. Else my retainer would have met her end today." Venerable Netherworld didn't hurry to down his cup. He stared at Tang Xiu and asked instead, "I want you to answer a question of mine." "Well, if you want to ask those 3 perfected golden immortals suddenly forgot to fight back, please don't ask," responded Tang Xiu with a smile. "What I can tell you is that I was the one who pulled it off indeed. But as for how I did it, that's a trade secret of mine." "Then I won't ask about it since it's your secret," said Venerable Netherworld with a wry smile. "If anything, I may have some connections with Sable Fiend Scorpion, so I wonder if she can answer me a question. If it's about that top-grade precantator artifact, I can tell you that the artifact was given to me by someone," said Sable Fiend Scorpio. "And if you're wondering whether I got the inheritance of the Diablo precantator clan, I didn't." Chapter 1358, Tang Xiu's Back Garden. Venerable Netherworld looked a bit disappointed the moment he heard Sable Fiend Scorpio's answer. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. It seems that it was I who misunderstood. You may have misunderstood me as the inheritance disciple of the Diablo Precantator clan, yet I must still thank you. Had it not been for you standing up and extending your hand this time, I'd hardly be alive now. I won't thank you more for the life-saving grace, but if you need my assistance in the future, I'll surely do my best to help so long as Master allows me. Venerable Netherworld slightly nodded and sighed. I didn't expect to actually get the favor of a late-stage, perfected golden immortal for misjudging. It's just that I'm still curious. How can you? Sable Fiend Scorpio glanced at Tang Xiu and lowered her head in silence. She didn't answer his question. Your curiosity seems heavier than I thought, Venerable Netherworld. Tang Xiu said with a smile. All right, I'll answer the question for you. Sable Fiend Scorpio had been captured and shackled in the convict arena, and I spent quite a lot to purchase her. That's the real reason she followed me and became my retainer. The convict arena? With a strange expression, Venerable Netherworld asked, when you sent some people to kill Nine Nether's friend, was she one of them? Nope. Tang Xiu shook his head. No? Venerable Netherworld stared blankly for a moment and immediately asked, with a shock, Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, how many perfected golden immortals have you bought from the convict arena, exactly? Tang Xiu raised his hand and deliberately counted his fingers and smilingly said, well, it was actually a few, nearly a dozen or so. Why? Does Venerable Netherworld want me to give you some of them? No, no, no. Venerable Netherworld gulped with incredulity on his face. He never dreamed that Tang Xiu was so bold and financially powerful that he could buy so many perfected golden immortals from the convict arena. With so many powerhouses under him now, his force was comparable to a second-class sect in the immortal world, right? I'm very envious of you, Great Tang Heavenly Emperor. You're so rich that you can rival a country. After saying that, he downed all the wine in the cup. Then, he got up and said, anyway, I'm here to obtain some treasures, so I'll take my leave now since Sable Fiend Scorpio is already safe. Tang Xiu nodded with a smile in response and watched Venerable Netherworld leave. He then slowly turned to Sable Fiend Scorpio and asked, do you know the origin of those three who just besieged you? They are people from the Cloud Cauldron sect, Master, answered Sable Fiend Scorpio. The Cloud Cauldron sect? Tang Su was surprised. This sect resides in the Heavenly Cloud Immortal domain, but this region is very far from here. One must cross over 100 immortal domains to get here from there. Further, that region is rather desolate. I never thought I'd run into 3 perfected golden immortals from that region. Sable Fiend Scorpio added, as far as I know, the Cloud Cauldron sect has 4 perfected golden immortals. Except for Whitespark True Monarch and those 2 violent 3-eyed clansmen, the last one is its sect master, Whitewing True Monarch. We may have to guard against their revenge if they were disciples from a big sect, but the Cloud Cauldron sect is not worth worrying about. Anyhow, how did you happen to clash with those there could Cauldron sect's people, though? Sable Fiend Scorpio took out the obsidian urn and handed it to Tang Xiu, saying, this is the treasure I got from a dangerous place some millions of kilometers away from here, Master. It happened that those Cloud Cauldron sect's bunch found me, so I got chased and then fought them near that mansion. The obsidian urn? Tang Xiu was surprised. He held the object and appraised it for a while. Then, he nodded and said, this obsidian urn was refined by Obsidian Supreme when he traveled across most of the regions in the immortal world. It took him nearly 500 years to collect a lot of precious materials to refine this 9th grade artifact. However, its only effect is to suppress the immortal soul. Having said that, a scroll appeared in Tang Xiu's hand out of the blue. He then threw it to Sable Fiend Scorpio and said, you may be my subordinate, but I won't take what you've obtained for free. This is the Flawless Myriad Beast Scripture, a very suitable cultivation art for exotic bestial races. The flawless myriad beast scripture? Sable-fiend Scorpio looked ecstatic and she quickly opened the scripture. The written simple ancient symbols flowed into her eyes. After 15 minutes, she knelt and gratefully said, "Thank you for your reward, Master. With this flawless myriad beast scripture, I have some degree of assurance to break through to the supremacy stage in the future. It would be great if you could soon advance to the supremacy state. You'll surely be a big help in the future." Tang Xiu faintly smiled. "Cultivate well. I'll provide you with the resources you need. The better your performance, the more you'll have various divine abilities and secret arts in the future, since I'll teach you those." "By your words, Lord." Sable-fiend Scorpio excitedly said, "This subordinate shall do her best to serve you." Prior to this, she only thought that Tang Xiu was just a wealthy man with a mysterious origin. The reason she pledged her loyalty to him was that her life was in his hands, but she held close to no true respect toward him. But now, she realized that her master was more mysterious and terrifying than she had imagined. Further, her master also must have some kind of supernatural ability. Back when she and Venerable Netherworld joined forces, that made them easily kill the enemies. Even Whitespark True Monarch was gravely injured and then fled. Only now did Sable-fiend Scorpio realize that her master, whom she had been despising, in fact, not only possessed massive wealth but also had amazing strength. The reason he had always acted weak was likely for hiding and concealing purposes. Further, he still had many other things in his possession, any of which would definitely create a great sensation in the outside world if he ever took it out. It must be noted that the flawless myriad beast scripture was a legacy inheritance of the unblemished sect, from the unblemished immortal domain, a cultivation scripture that was said to be the highest immortal cultivation art of that sect. She couldn't figure out why her master would have such a top immortality cultivation manual. However, she was sure that her master was probably more mysterious and more powerful than she thought. Tang Xiu waved his hand and said, "Let's take away all the treasures in that manor since we've already gathered. Also, we still have to find star tiers while gathering everything here." Sable-fiend Scorpio respectfully replied, "Master, I've noticed some things even though I was chased to that manor. Many people have discovered that manor, but none of them could enter it smoothly in the past few days. Many golden immortals and perfected golden immortals were either killed by the restriction and trapping mechanisms on the bridge leading to that manor or were forced back with heavy injuries. For safety's sake, I think we need to wait until someone else breaks the restrictions and traps. It won't be too late for us to go there afterward." "Well, how about we bet?" said Tang Xiu with a smile all of a sudden. Sable-fiend Scorpio froze and stared blankly for a moment, then replied quickly, "Your subordinate doesn't dare." "Hey, cast away your worries, will you?" Tang Xiu chuckled and smiled. "If anything, I won't blame you for anything. Let me tell you, entering that manor will definitely be as easy as entering my own back garden. Do you believe me?" Sable-fiend Scorpio shot a strange look at Tang Xiu and slowly shook her head. "No. I don't believe you." "Well, let's bet, one immortal crystal since you don't believe me, then," said Tang Xiu. After thinking for a moment, Sable-fiend Scorpio nodded. "If it's really as Master said, that we can enter the manor easily just like waltzing into your own back garden, then I'll naturally concede on the game. Deal. Now follow me." With a smile on his face, Tang Xiu removed the soundproof array and flew towards the manor through the previous route with Sable-fiend Scorpio. About 1,000 kilometers away from the palace, Tang Xiu found many immortals hiding in some places. However, instead of alarming them, he decided to take a detour and then approached the manor. As they were 100 kilometers away from the manor, Tang Xiu halted his advance and slightly frowned. He could sense that the closer they got to the manor, the more the immortals hiding in the surroundings. Even if he wanted to take another detour, there was just no space left to do so. "Seems like I can only change my appearance here." Tang Xiu sighed inwardly. His facial muscles quickly shifted and changed and he soon wore a different face. After seeing him, Sable Fiend Scorpio also followed suit and changed her appearance. Afterward, Tang Xiu led Sable Fiend Scorpio and swaggeringly waltzed to the front of the place. Under everyone's watch, he and Sable Fiend Scorpio stepped on the several thousands of meters long bridge. Look at my steps and follow me immediately. Keep in mind not to miss any, else you'll be attacked by the restrictions and traps here, said Tang Xiu with a voice transmission. Understood. Sable-Fied Scorpio looked at him with a strange expression, but she didn't ask because she wanted to see whether this mysterious master of hers really had the skill to enter the manor, or was just bragging. As they advanced all the way, they met tens of immortals walking carefully on the long bridge as though they were walking on thin ice. As they advanced halfway, they saw a golden immortal blasted into pieces by the lightning sparks from the restriction and then heavily smashed on the bridge. There was only an instant scream from him before the man was wiped out by a large number of restrictions from both sides. Huh? Suddenly, Tang Xiu's eyes turned chilly since he found a familiar face 100 meters away. He remembered that person, a golden immortal disciple of Inner Pill sect he saw in the Inner Pill sect's accommodation in the Boundless City. At this moment, the Inner Pill sect's golden immortal simply ignored them even though that man had noticed that some people came behind him. His attention was fully diverted to the restrictions and traps on both sides of the bridge. He had been extremely meticulous to make accurate inferences for every step he took after he came here, constantly comprehending the mystery of the restrictions on the bridge to spot the position of the traps. I can definitely cross this bridge and enter the manor within 7 days at most. I'm sure this manor hoards tons of treasure. Even the inheritance left by Drunken Immortal Supreme could be in this place. The Golden Immortal of the Inner Pill sect thought some happy things in mind after he successfully broke another restriction. Chapter 1359, Sweeping Everything. Sable Fiend Scorpio, remember to strike that guy when you bump into him later, but be sure not to expose the weapons you've used before so as to prevent those powerhouses who are hiding to find out who you are, said Tang Xiu with a voice transmission. Understood. Sable Fiend Scorpio replied curtly and immediately looked at the Golden Immortal in front with a bit of killing intent. As the duo was just less than 10 meters away from that Golden Immortal, she flicked her finger and shot an immortal crystal driven by her immortal force, instantly piercing the back of that Golden Immortal. The man's complexion greatly changed in a flash and was replaced by terror as his body was sent flying out of the bridge. Arg. After the terrible scream, the Golden Immortal was directly killed by the terrifying restriction outside the bridge. By the way, how much do you know about the Inner Pill sect and the Everlasting Palace, Sable Fiend Scorpio? Asked Tang Xiu with a cold tone via voice transmission. And how much do you know about the Myriad Sword sect and the 100 Poison sect? Sable Fiend Scorpio's complexion changed. I know a little about the Everlasting Palace, but I know more about 100 Poison sect. My knowledge on the Inner Pill sect and Myriad Sword sect is close to none. I only know that these two sects have some perfected golden immortals at the helm. That's enough. Tang Xiu nodded and sent his voice again. Now, remember what I'm going to tell you. You are to kill anyone from those 4 sects should you run into them in the future. Go all out to kill the people from those 4 forces without exposing your identity. From now onwards, those 4 sects are our enemies. Gasp. Despite having a cold nature and killing was like mowing grass to her, Sable Fiend Scorpio couldn't help but gasp after hearing Tang Xiu's statement. Of those 4 sects, the Inner Pill sect and the Everlasting Palace were the top sects in the immortal world, whereas the Myriad Sword sect and the 100 Poison sect were ranked at second-tier sections. Learning that she would have to face so many enemies all of a sudden, a chill ran down her spine. Pressure will give birth to stimulation and motivation. Only by stepping on the bodies of enemies can we live longer, go further, and become stronger, said Tang Xiu indifferently. Certainly, it's not like we don't have any allies in fighting them. Should you ever run into anyone fighting them, they are our allies. Given the current situation in the immortal world, these 4 sects must also have many enemies, yes? That's right. As far as I know, their biggest archenemy is the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect and the 4 Sacred Palaces, Sable-Fiend Scorpio replied. 4 Sacred Palaces? Ever since returning to the immortal world, Tang Xiu had heard of the name of this force many times. What puzzled him most was that the 4 Sacred Palaces seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. There had been no instance of such a name ever existing in the past, but many powerhouses emerged from this force, and they were also very hostile toward the Inner Pill sect and the Everlasting Palace. Had it not been for the emergence of this sect, the present situation of the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect would have been much worse. Do you know the origin of these 4 Sacred Palaces? Tang Xiu scrunched up his brows and asked in a low voice while walking towards the front. I don't know the details of their origin. But around 600 plus years ago, I ran into some people from the 4 Sacred Palaces. They were fighting some powerhouses from the Myriad Sword sect then, a very intense battle I'd say. I know that the leader of the 4 Sacred Palaces was called Venerable Azure Tiger, a late-stage, perfected golden immortal powerhouse who is said to have the bloodline of the ancient divine beast Azure Dragon, and he wore the Azure Qilin armor that time. He alone fought against 4 mid-stage, perfected golden immortals and easily dispatched them, forcing those 4 skillfully and injuring them continuously. Tang Xiu's complexion changed. He knew a little of the situation in a more distant period and was aware of the fact that the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect was originally a branch of a super-large sect that had several divisions. Of those divisions, the Azure Dragon lineage was one of them. The Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, Black Tortoise, and Qilin clan were originally the divine beasts that acted as the guardian deities of that super-large sect. Tang Xiu and Sable-Fiend Scorpio kept moving forward while conversing. Several people had seen Sable-Fiend Scorpio's sneak attack on the Golden Immortal just now, arousing their vigilance and making them halt their advance. These people were now glaring at the duo with a stance as though they were facing formidable enemies, keeping their vigilance to guard against their sneak attack. Within a range of several thousands of kilometers outside the manor, tens of perfected golden immortals kept observing Tang Xiu and Sable-Fiend Scorpio's advance. To their shock, they realized that the duo seemed very relaxed and faced no obstruction ever since they stepped on the bridge. It was like those restrictions and traps were just useless to them. How come all these obstructions pose nothing to them? That's strange. Do they know where and what restrictions and traps are, by chance? I don't get it either. That's beyond me. Do you know who these 2 are and where they come from? How can they just waltz through the restrictions and traps outside the manor like that? Huh? They actually headed to the front of everyone unscathed? They are very fast, much faster than everyone else. What the hell is going on here? Are they perhaps familiar with this place or something? It's weird indeed. While conversing, Tang Xiu and Sable-Fiend Scorpio directly crossed the long bridge and came to the square in front of the manor. There were a total of 16 puppet beasts around the square. They suddenly left their previous spots and lunged toward Tang Xiu and Sable-Fiend Scorpio. Big Dipper revolution and movement. Tang Xiu began to move in a certain pattern of footsteps. He grabbed Sable-Fiend Scorpio's hand while his feet kept changing positions. The 16 puppet beasts soon lost their targets and circled around the square several times before returning to their previous spots. Open. Tang Xiu then decided to conjure a technique. Immediately after, the 100-meter purple gold door slowly opened. Golden rays were shining from the interior and Tang Xiu quickly led Sable-Fiend Scorpio directly into the gate, as it slowly closed afterward. They went in. The tens of golden immortals and perfected golden immortals on the long bridge were all dumbfounded. Some of them had been wandering here for several days, all of whom had gone up the long bridge to study the restrictions and traps, yet none of them was able to enter the manor's gate. But the duo just waltzed in so easily. It felt like they were just strolling around their own back garden, so how could they not be dumbfounded? Inside the manor. To describe what it was a picturesque scene of a magnificent jade manor. Tang Xiu himself didn't waste his time appreciating the beauty of the manor and quickly cast some techniques and gathered each immortal artifact hanging in various spots and places. He didn't even miss any precious ore and jewelry inlaid in the manor. All of them were collected by him. Tang Xiu's action was literally sweeping everything and missing nothing. He was unwilling to leave anything behind. Either he directly ingested them or he stuffed them into his ring. To Sable Fiend Scorpio's shock, she calculated that the total value of treasures Tang Xiu had collected exceeded 100 million crystal essences in just half an hour. That was 100 million crystal essences. A number that could make any perfected golden immortal envious to death. That mannerism is kind of unsightly. Sable Fiend Scorpio's mouth twitched upon watching Tang Xiu dig out the golden sandstone on a wall and then stuffed it into his ring. She hesitantly said, "Master, why don't you let me help you? Else, you may have to spend a long time gathering all the treasures here given how vast the manor is." "No, you're not familiar with the situation of this place." Tang Xiu shook his head. "If you try to collect the treasures rashly, the restrictions will definitely attack you. Just stand where you are and wait for me." Sable Fiend Scorpio slightly frowned, but she didn't think that Tang Xiu's statement was false. After all, Tang Xiu could easily take her to this place, meaning that he was truly very familiar with this place. She had tried to use an immortal stone to shoot a fire bead inlaid on the pillar, yet the stone not only failed to hit it but was also straightly crushed by the restriction on the wall. Not to mention that detecting that restriction by naked eyes had been proved to be very difficult. Could Master have become the successor of Drunken Immortal Supreme? Did he get the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme a few days ago, so he can fully understand the situation in this secret palace? Sable Fiend Scorpio's eyes flickered and looked at Tang Xiu with a particular expression. Every other courtyard and literally every spot in the manor was getting cleaned up, and Tang Xiu's speed was getting faster and faster. He kept collecting a large number of immortal treasures and cultivation resources, storing them into his interspatial ring. After 6 days of harvesting, Tang Xiu came to the deepest part of the manor after collecting all the treasures inside the manor. While looking at the now completely empty manor, leaving only the frames intact, Sable Fiend Scorpio could only force a wry smile inwardly. Even if those infamous thieves who rampaged to steal from some holy sect were to come here, I don't think they'd be able to loot like this, no? Tang Xiu contentedly shifted to Sable Fiend Scorpio and spoke with a beaming smile. "Well, that should be all, more or less. These many resources should be enough for the expense of the great Tang Empire for centuries. Let's head out and leave this place to harvest some more treasures and resources elsewhere. We gotta return home fully loaded since we already entered a treasure mountain." With a hesitant face, Sable Fiend Scorpion asked, "Master, why do you seem very familiar with this place?" Read latest chapters at wuxioworld.site. "I told you before that this secret palace is like my own back garden, didn't I?" replied Tang Xiu with a smile. "Pity that I'm not interested in the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme, though. Else this entire secret palace would have been mine and I could have been able to take all the resources here." Sable Fiend Scorpio's mouth twitched yet again, but now her heart was boiling. If Master told the truth, that would mean they would have an extraordinarily rewarding harvest. Afterward, Tang Xiu took Sable Fiend Scorpio to leave the place. Just as the duo came out of the manor's gate, tens of eyes on the long bridge suddenly shifted their attention to them. With an unfazed expression, Tang Xiu said aloud, "Hey, you guys. There's nothing inside, not even any treasure. Not to mention that those restrictions and traps inside are even more fearsome than the ones outside. This place is nothing but a death trap, so you had better leave. Don't say that I didn't give advice about this. Did you just get a lot of treasures from the inside, brat?" A white-haired old man with a dragon head cane meaningfully looked at Tang Xiu. If you really think there are some treasures in there, you can try breaking the restrictions and traps here, said Tang Xiu lightly. After you enter, though, I only hope that you won't end up regretting later since you've wasted so much time here. Chapter 1360, The Supreme's Inheritance. Tang Xiu straightly ignored them after saying those words and quickly headed outside with Sable Fiend Scorpio. Just as they were about to reach the other end of the long bridge, however, tens of figures instantly flashed and blocked their path to the bridgehead. Hand over your interspatial ring. Else today will be the day of the tragic death of the two of you, shouted a late-stage, perfected golden immortal coldly, eyes filled with a chilling light. Tang Xiu smiled in response. Do you think we'll be afraid of some idiots outside after we dare to venture deep into the manor so openly? I'm not afraid to tell you. Even if you had 100 times the numbers and 100 times the strength, you wouldn't be able to deal with us whatsoever. Hear my advice, do not provoke us. Else your fate will be very miserable. The late-stage, perfected golden immortal shot back with contempt and said, not even a supreme dares to brag so big when facing so many people, yet an infant like you dares to be so arrogant, huh? Everyone, these two shits seem very ignorant of their limits and are acting recklessly. Let's *CK them up and divide the treasures they got from the manor equally. What do you think? No problem. Agree. Fine with me. The tens of perfected golden immortals nodded one after another and glared at Tang Xiu and Sable Fiend Scorpio with malice. However, none of them took the lead in attacking the duo even though they did say that. They were a bit wary about these two people, who just waltzed in and out of the manor so easily. Tang Xiu and Sable Fiend Scorpio exchanged glances and then retreated for tens of meters in an instant. Quickly after, Tang Xiu sneered. Come here to the bridge and we'll accompany you to trade blows. Come on. Come here and fight us if you have balls. Fight on the bridge? The complexion of the tens of perfected golden immortals changed and they retreated a few steps. Tang Xiu and Sable Fiend Scorpio shot each and every one of them a contemptuous look at the same time and immediately sat cross-legged, on their spots. Time went by and the stalemate continued. A whole day later, while the tens of perfected golden immortals kept staring at Tang Xiu and Sable Fiend Scorpio, the previous white-haired old man's expression suddenly shifted. He was keenly aware of the erratic slight movements of the duo while sitting cross-legged on the long bridge. It didn't seem that it was because they were immersing in cultivation, but it was like. The instant after, a flying knife appeared in his hand and he threw it to Tang Xiu instantly. To his fury that nearly made him cough up blood, the flying knife directly penetrated Tang Xiu's body, yet the body just blurred and burst into twinkling lights and vanished from their sight. At this moment, however, Sable Fiend Scorpio's eyes opened and she smiled strangely towards the tens of perfected golden immortals before her body dispersed. *T. That was their blood clones. We just got deceived by those two assholes, the white-haired old man shouted angrily. The tens of others were also fuming, wishing they could shred Tang Xiu's and Sable Fiend Scorpio's hearts into pieces. At present, Tang Xiu and Sable Fiend Scorpio were some millions of kilometers away from that place, happily sitting under a large tree while savoring the immortal beast's meat Tang Xiu had just grilled. This thing tastes great, master. Sable Fiend Scorpio was a carnivorous bestial race, to begin with. Having no meat in her diet would make her unhappy, and she rarely had a chance to eat delicious fill since she was captured and shackled in the convict arena. Now that she tasted the delicacy gourmet Tang Xiu personally cooked, she suddenly had the illusion that serving this mysterious master of hers may not be such a bad thing, after all. But then, she suddenly recalled the 4 sects, the enemies Tang Xiu told her, and immediately a shiver went down her spine. This thought immediately expelled the ridiculous idea that just crossed her mind. Wow, what a great smell! A lightning-fast moving figure suddenly flashed from the distance and came to the front of the duo in the blink of an eye. However, neither of them looked alert and they were instead smiling at the same time. You're late. Tang Shou smiled and looked at Star Tears, whose body was decorated with wounds. Got some troubles on the way. It was thrilling but not dangerous though, responded Star Tears bitterly. By the way, those two boys should be here soon. We bumped into each other on the way and kind of had an agreement that whoever ran into troubles, I'd lead the enemy while they should go elsewhere. What troubles did you encounter, exactly? Asked Tang Shou. We happened to run into some myriad sword sex people, so I went to slay them, said Star Tears. Who would have thought there were two perfected golden immortals of that sect nearby? I led those two bastards away and separated from them. How many of them did you kill, then? Asked Tang Shou with a smile. Perhaps around 6 golden immortals, said Star Tears. But those two perfected golden immortal didn't come out unscathed and had no easy time either. That's just great. Tang Shou gave his thumbs up and exclaimed, the more you kill them, the happier I'll be. Anyway, take a break, eat something, and begin to recuperate. When those two boys gather with us, we'll then team up for treasure hunting. That's right. I'll take you to a certain place later. Huh? Star Tears was bewildered and asked, where to? Just have your fill first. You'll know it later, replied Tang Shou with a mysterious smile. 2 days later, two figures with miserable appearances and distressed looks appeared in front of the trio. Star Luminous and Star Peng's whole bodies were covered by blood, and they quickly took a purple scent pill each as they sat cross-legged on the ground and began recuperating. The two of them were seriously injured after being chased by a perfected golden immortal on the way here. But what made them nearly collapse was that it was the only encounter they had. They kept running into some other perfected golden immortals time and again along the way, and even their interspatial rings were robbed by them. Thankfully, they didn't stuff their purple scent pill in their rings and stored it into their belts, else they would have lost the medicine as well. Tisk, tisk. Tang Shou sighed a few times as he saw their distressed appearances. Then, he took out 2 immortal crystals and flicked them into their hands, saying lightly, go heal yourselves and quickly absorb the immortal force in the crystal essence to speed up your healing pace. We still got tens of millions of kilometers to go and it won't be a peaceful trip. Traversing some tens of millions of kilometers again? Star Luminous and Star Peng couldn't help trembling for a while after hearing this. They immediately grabbed the crystal essence and went all out to absorb the immortal force contained in it. Using it in tandem with the efficacy of the purple scent pill, they began recuperating and replenishing the spent immortal force. Half a day later, just as Tang Shou finished cooking an immortal beast's meat, he suddenly slapped his own forehead and spoke with an expression that didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Hey, I was really muddle-headed. I told them to recuperate. It would have been much better for them to enter the heavenly abode artifact and do it inside. Why did I tell them to stay silly here and wait? Boys, quickly enter the heavenly abode artifact. Got it. After Star Luminous and Star Peng entered the heavenly abode, Tang Shou also ordered Sable Fiend Scorpio to enter the artifact, while he and Star Tears took a roasted beast's thigh and hurried along the way while munching on it. By the way, did those two boys already figure out your true identity, Anti-Star Tears? Tang Shou asked with a smile while vigilantly observing the surroundings. Nope, not yet. Star Tears shook her head and smiled. They won't be able to discover my identity with their current strength unless I take the initiative to expose it. Remember not to conjure any of your signature divine abilities whenever they're with us. I have some arts here, you can learn them. There are too many of our enemies in this secret palace, so our mission is both treasure hunting and killing them. Star Tears took some scriptures of secret arts from Tang Shou and, after stuffing them in her interspatial ring, she said with all seriousness, the Inner Pill Sect, Everlasting Palace, Myriad Sword Sect, and 100 Poison Sect have sent quite a lot of their powerhouses to this secret palace, so we had better act more cautious. I still remember what you told me before, that there will be a chance to get revenge as long as we're still kicking. We can slay some of them, but we must avoid them immediately should we encounter too many of them. No worries, anti-star tears. I know that. Tang Xiu nodded. Half a year later. Tang Xiu and Star Tears kept hurrying all the way while picking up treasures and slaying some people all the way. In the past 6 months, they had killed 16 golden immortals and 1 perfected golden immortal from the Inner Pill sect, 37 golden immortals and 2 perfected golden immortals from the Everlasting Palace, 8 golden immortals and 1 perfected golden immortal from the Myriad Sword sect, and lastly, 6 golden immortals from the 100 Poison sect. The ocean of stars should be ahead. Tang Xiu took a deep breath and whispered something from his memory. At the moment, he and Star Tears were on the edge of a mountain range. They could now see a turbulent sea filled with mighty waves with their naked eyes, while some immortal beasts were seen wandering around above the surface. Is this place also ridden with dangers? Asked Star Tears. Dangerous is certain, but not like those restrictions and small arrays in other areas of this secret palace. Tang Xiu shook his head and explained, the dangers will come from other immortals. We're now only tens of thousands of kilometers from our destination. As long as we enter the sea, we'll be able to land on that island where Drunken Immortal Supreme left his inheritance. Star Tears forced a smile. You know, Drunken Immortal Supreme told you that you can't inherit his legacy, yet we still came here. Do you not feel vexed at least a bit? Not really. I don't feel bad at all. Tang Xiu shook his head. He already knew my identity, so he didn't want me to inherit his legacy. But it's not like it's prohibited from anyone else to have it. I already learned the structure of this secret palace's array. Shortly put, I know this place inside out, so I can naturally bring others inside. If anything, he didn't say that I'm not allowed to bring anyone there to accept his inheritance. And so you want me to accept the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme? Star Tears was shocked.
Yeah.
Tang Xiu nodded. I do want you to accept his legacy. Besides, I dare to conclude that you'll soon be able to advance to the supremacy stage after you've accepted his legacy. Anti-Star Tears. When you break through to the supremacy stage will be the time you return to the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect ahead of time. Huh? Star Tears was bewildered. Don't you want me not to go back to the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect ahead of time, though? It's because you didn't have sufficient strength before, so I didn't want you to return to the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect, said Tang Xiu. But if you can advance to the supremacy stage, it won't be a problem. Also, I want you to tell the news that I'm still alive to my father. Star Tears contemplated for a moment and then nodded. No worries, he'll be the only one I'll tell about it. I'll also inform him about your methods and plans.